Hello and welcome. Whether you're joining live or gonna listen back to this at a more convenient time for you, we're really happy to have you with us. Look, it's the first two people. Well, thank you for joining us. As always, I'm tuning in from New York. It's 8:30 here, and I'm enjoying my first Nespresso.
Enjoy
Made in
it.
this. Thank you, Anatol. Made in
I
this
have just like
beautiful. Oh,
empty
there you
water.
go. Empty
Empty
water.
water. Yes.
Yeah. So today we're really lucky to be joined by Anatol Korel, who's the founder and CEO of Kickbase, which, if you haven't experienced it yet, is the most addictive phone app I have ever encountered. Like
Sorry.
Instagram, move aside, move aside.
Nice.
Every yeah, it's like a fantasy manager that is so much better than whatever anyone else is playing, I have to say, because you can tell us a bit about what makes Kickbase special, and
Mm,
how the experience is.
sure. Thank you so much for this lovely intro, Marie. Well, I think what sets Kickbase apart from every other fantasy product, at least that I know of, is first of all that we really focused since day one on UX, right? So we were all UX designer, user experience designer, and wanted to build a fantasy manager that for the first time is really focused on mobile, that is beautiful, that is easy to use, looks great. That was one, I would say, like one part of the foundation we came up with. And the second part was that we wanted to be live as possible, because back then when we started out, it was you only had fantasy products that were, you watch the game and only after a couple of days you get the results in terms of like points or rating cards or whatever. So we were like, okay, if we build a fantasy manager, it should be something that is like really had this second screen to it, right? So you really watch the game and seconds later you immediately get the reward for whatever you did there. So I think still that is what sets us apart, really, is this live match day experience, how we call it. So really watching the game, watching on your mobile phone alongside, and really celebrate every action that happens on the pitch, like immediately, together with your star that you lined up, hopefully.
Yeah, I was just gonna show you. So this is my own version, and you can see some of my players. Shout out to Chris Richards, Amadou
I don't see Bayern players
Haidara.
there. Missing
No,
red, missing red.
I had Jamal Musiala, who was like my
Oof.
favorite, but he
Yeah,
wasn't playing enough, and
yeah.
he,
It's
he,
it's it's
it's hard.
it, it's hard with FC Bayern. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
always, like they're rotating quite a bit. I mean, these days they're kind of stable, with some injuries coming up, and you kind of like can predict the starting 11. But if everyone is healthy at Bayern, it's really hard to guess. Is it Sané? Is it Coman? Is it Gnabry? Is it Musiala? Is it Goretzka? Is it whoever?
exactly. Yeah, we have one guy in our league. He's
Uh huh.
actually So I play in a league with the Sky
Hmm.
colleagues. So for background, Sky is like the television. They're the rights holders for most of the Bundesliga in Germany. And I have a friend there who kindly invited me onto their league. And
Nice.
there's one guy, he plays under the name SC Paderborn. I don't know why,
Mm.
but that's his deal. And
Well,
he has four Bayern players. His whole midfield he's got like Thomas Müller, Leon Goretzka, Joshua Kimmich, and now he's also got Zabitzer.
but what he probably is lagging with is probably money then, because
Hmm.
having the whole FC Bayern midfield, it costs a lot of money, man.
Yeah,
Like how did you
yeah.
manage that?
And how does it, Anatol, how does it work? Because this is actually different. So if anyone plays Kicker or Fantasy Premier League, where there's
Hmm.
a little or no fluctuation between prices, you touched on the live thing. How does it work with market values? So like if,
Yeah,
for example, let's try and think of a player that really, so Mavropanos, the Stuttgart defender who's on
yeah,
loan from Arsenal,
yeah.
he's really had like a breakout season so far.
Yes.
And maybe he was a bargain early in the season, bargain being like 5 million, you know, in this
Mm.
fictional money that we all have. But now he's probably around 20. So how does the app develop that?
Well, it's quite a complex ecosystem in its own, right? So what we look at is how many of a specific player, so in this case Mavropanos, are around there. You know, we look at let's say we look at leagues, right? So you are playing in one league with your colleagues, right? That's just like one league, and then we're looking at nearly 20 to 30,000 of those leagues. And there is a high chance that Mavropanos is on the transfer market, or at least at one of those leagues. And it's probably many hundreds of leagues where Mavropanos is currently on the transfer market. And then we more or less track how many of those Mavropanos are getting bought off the transfer market, you know. And this way we realize, okay, so in every transfer market where Mavropanos is joining, you know, it's like a random algorithm of throwing different players on the transfer market for a couple of hours. And if Mavropanos each and every time get, you know, bought, then we know, okay, there's a high interest in this player. And in the other direction is like how many Mavropanos owners are selling him for whatever reason. It's another indicator for, oh, why are they selling him? Actually, something must be off, you know, maybe he's injured or whatever. And then the algorithm immediately detects like, okay, there's a high, it's like in the stock market, to be honest. It's supply and demand. That's actually the groundwork is supply and demand, definitely. And then we have, of course, some tweaks and knobs that we can like turn and trying to detect like, well, maybe it's off season, so meaning that many people selling their players, it's not a bad sign at all, you know. It's just like maybe it's a turnover and they want to like switch team or whatever. So yeah, this it's supply and demand to make it short, but it's more complex than that.
Yeah, fascinating. I like what you said, like that it's about the stock market, because
yeah, it's really it has this feel to it. Yeah. I mean, we were even thinking at one point to make it even like, you know, live. Which would be even more awesome if you like imagine you buy Mavropanos in the morning and you can sell him with you know, with profit by the end of the day. Why? Because he gained market value. Why? Because I don't know, he maybe played a good game in the DFB Pokal or whatever, you know. This would be awesome as well. But that's another thing we have to think about.
Yeah. And I think just to kind of bring everyone into the boat, so to speak, especially people like listeners who maybe haven't played the app before, who live in, you know, in different markets or to follow different leagues. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience a few years ago when you went on television to join the show Die Höhle der Löwen, which is kind of like the German equivalent of the Lion's Den in the UK, or Shark Tank with like Mark Cuban and such in the US, where people like pitch their own companies.
It's actually Mark Cuban sitting in the jury in the United States.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we would have had like such high profile guys in our audience. No, so the German equivalent, as you mentioned, is Höhle der Löwen, and well, it was a fun experience. I told the story once or twice in my life because people were like, "Oh, you went to the show. It must have been like super amazing, and you only get 15 minutes, and it's like super, I don't know, whatever produced, and you get like many takes." And well, the reality is, I mean, you get in there and you for the first time see the jury. You never had a chance to say hi to them or whatever. It's really just like you see them for the first time. And then you have like, I don't know, whatever it takes, like 30 to 45 minutes. You don't get a second chance. You don't get a second take or whatever, unless you probably trip and fall or something. I don't know. But if you don't do, then you just get one take. So you get in there, you're quite nervous, and then you pitch, right? And you pitch for many minutes. I mean, you have like more or less an elevator pitch where you have to quickly wrap things up. And then they're asking a lot of questions, and also like super detailed questions, which they don't even show on TV, right? Because they're probably going too deep in terms of like marketing KPIs and stuff, which probably the average viewer wouldn't know what we're talking about. So yeah, we pitched there for 30, 35, 45 minutes, and then you're gone. And then probably like a half year later, they prepare the show and stream it, and only then you see like, okay, how did they arrange your pitch? Because actually what they do is like they take bits and pieces and switch them, however it suits their interest sort of. And but still okay. It was like a fun experience, and especially once it gets like aired on TV, yeah, what you definitely get is a lot of attention. It's being it from investors, being it from, of course, potential users. Many people will download your app, most likely crash your servers. We were prepared. Still, they managed to crash it. Probably not prepared enough. However, we were down for a couple of minutes because too many people at the same time wanted to sign up and stuff.
Awesome.
So super fun experience. But in the end, we didn't get a deal, which was okay, because it wasn't our first priority. Get in there and get a deal. First of all, we wanted to get in there and present our product to a broader audience, which worked out the moment we were on stage, of course. Yeah, it was a nice experience. I was super nervous, and yeah, yeah, it was fun for sure.
Do you remember how many people downloaded the app within the show?
Yeah, it must have been something like, I think like immediately during the show, it was already 20K, like around 20K
Wow.
people downloaded it. And it took it like in the next following up, like 12 to 24 hours, in sum, it was 40 to 50K. Because the press is writing a lot, there are like, it's crazy how like you gain a deep understanding of media and media landscape once you're so into the show. Why? Because once it gets like aired on TV, there are already like journalists writing articles around it, publish it everywhere, like in the same time, and in the meantime, many of those startups who pitched there already prepared some landing pages, or next week you go to a grocery store, you already see those products that just were pitched yesterday, so to say. It's insane. They are just waiting for the pitch, and once they see the pitch, they write something and immediately publish an article. And this wave of media hit us as well, right? And it was also like a positive wave of media. Even though you don't get a deal, they keep writing about you, and it's still going on, like many years after, you still get media like, okay, 1 year later, how did Kickbase do? 5 years later, how many of those startups who pitched and didn't get a deal are still successful? They find a way writing about you and telling your story, like still, like many years after. I think it's already 5 years or 6 years ago or something, I'm not sure, and still people ask me about it. And on the other side, many people like who know Kickbase and play Kickbase, they're like, hey, I know you like from this show. It's like, okay, crazy, 6 years ago, and the only way you get to know about it is probably around the show. It's insane. Yeah.
So I did read that, speaking of media coverage, that among other professional footballers who play Kickbase, there's actually so Kickbase, just for background, if anyone isn't using it yet, you kind of, what makes it really fun, among other things, is that you're in a league with your friends. So it will be like your colleagues, or I don't know, your university friends. So everyone, and you're basically trading players with people and it just so turns out that Hoffenheim, the Bundesliga club, they actually have their own league, like some of the players that play on it. And I mean, just, kind of like celebrity hour. Could you speak a bit about some of the players who people might know who are Kickbase users? And is it the kind of thing where you find out about it randomly, like through interviews, or how do you guys even know like who plays?
Well, like I remember to this day then that the very first professional footballer who played it was Sebastian Rode. He played for Eintracht Frankfurt, then for Dortmund, then for Bayern, then again for Eintracht Frankfurt. And his management actually called up. They reached out to the office. They just called the office landline, so to say, and just reached out and wanted to chat, and I was like, okay, well, what do you want to know? Like, well, let's just meet for a coffee and we'll see. And it's like, okay. So I met up with my first, let's say, professional football player that played Kickbase. I met him for the first time. Of course, I knew him, and we had a brief conversation about like how do we manage to do it, and what are our future plans, and maybe he can even support, with I don't know, like maybe investments. Of course, football players are always thinking about to invest in and stuff. So this was the very first encounter, so to say, with a professional football player. And from this day on, like in the following years, it was in every possible way. It was just like a direct message on Instagram from Mats Hummels, for example.
Yeah.
It was a comment, a live comment on TV from Sasha Kalajdzic from Stuttgart, who just mentioned, well, I just play it, and it's like, oh wow, he plays it as well. And or Max Kruse, Thomas Müller, they all just talk about it naturally on social media, and people tag us so we don't miss it because we are not following everyone.
Yeah.
And people just tag us and it's like, did you saw that? And he just mentioned you on social media. We were like, no, we missed it. Can you send us something? It was super cute. But yeah, after 7-8 years now, being in contact with those guys every now and then, over social media mostly, right? They write you the most common questions like, hey, guys, can you please check, like, I forgot my password, I can't sign up again. It's like from a world champion winner, it's like, okay, I'll help you with your password. And then it's like, okay, just send me your email and we will reset your password. Then he sends you his email address and it's like, okay, his email address is exactly how you expect it to be. It's like first name, last name at Hotmail or something. It's like, don't you guys can come up with like some secret stuff? Like, imagine that. So there's a high chance if you write like first name dot last name at Gmail or whatever, you will reach actually a professional football player. That's my thesis. Yeah, so it's really mostly direct messages that, yeah, social media is crazy these days. So this is how we find out, and yeah, some of them are super nice, some of them are, yeah, not so nice and are just like, okay, just like help me out here, and you never hear of them again. And some of them just mention you on social media, which is of course doing us a huge benefit. If they mention you on social media, it's always like you see a little spike in downloads.
Yeah, speaking of, I know it's hard and you probably don't want to reveal how many users you have, because it's really hard to track that, like how many people play every weekend or such. But
yeah,
no, I was just gonna say, can you say how many people have downloaded the app?
Yeah, exactly. It's a hard number to tell anyway, right? Because people are always, hey, how many users do you have? And it's like, well, you have to be way more specific because it depends on the time of the season, start of the season versus end of the season. People are getting tired of football end of the season, especially if the championship is kind of like fixed, and then okay, if the Bayern will win, so maybe not every I don't know, Berlin fan or Stuttgart fan is like that highly engaged in Kickbase anymore. So we have around like 2 million downloads, 2 million downloads of the app. So hundreds of thousands of users using it on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. And yeah, it's changing, of course, along the season. But yeah, start of the season is always the best time around. And yeah, considering that we have like around 2 million downloads, you can like figure how much it could be around a month. It's a 6-figure number, but yeah, it's changing all the time, and I'm not a big fan of talking about it. Why? Because then it's in the media out there, and then for the next 5 years, that's the number you are. Like, yeah. That's the thing. I think I once mentioned it like 4 years, I think 6 years ago, we had 120,000 monthly actives. This number is still around. People still think we are 120K. And it's like, okay, that's not true. Can I change it somewhere? Forget it. Internet is not allowing you to do that.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think, yeah, it's kind of like, when you write your resume or your cover letter or your CV and people are like, numbers. I think, as a journalist, I think we're the same. We're like, we want to like prove it.
Yes.
Then it's late. I think, in my opinion, it's lazy journalism. If you write a story, first of all, it's lazy journalism if you write a story of another story anyway. But then if you see, like, literally, it's the internet, you can see the date. And if it's like, this was published in March 2017, Like, and then you say this is how many monthly users. Like, come on, do a little
Yeah,
better than that.
they write it with a link, that's the source, and the source might be 5 years old, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They just write 120K, and yeah.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
just have to show this because one of my favorite users, just she's a
Kate
regular. Hi,
McG.
Kate.
Hello, Kate. Oh, love the profile pic.
Yeah, no, we have quite a lot of Man United fans actually, who
Nice.
watch this show. Man United and Arsenal are like a lot of profile pictures
Mm-hmm.
we'll see. We had Grant Wall on a few weeks ago, the
Mm-hmm.
American soccer journalist, and
Nice.
there was a Norwich City fan, and Grant Wall was just like destroying Norwich, and it was so
Oh
funny.
no, I couldn't do that. No, I'm struggling with the Bundesliga, to keep up with all this media and news and everything. So Premier League, poof, I can't tell a lot about Premier League, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, just people always say that for investors like VCs or angel investors or even professional footballers, any software, company tech is kind of like the dream because you can, you make it and then you can
Mm,
scale it so
yeah.
fast because there's no hardware. For you guys, it is a little bit of a different story because to actually use names like Robert Lewandowski, Erling Haaland,
Mm,
you need permission. Can you tell us a bit about what that was like at the beginning? And I mean, how does that work? Do you just email the DFL, the German league, and I was like,
mm.
hello?
Yeah, they're
uh,
just waiting for you. No, it's correct. Like if you are, let's say, if you are an app and you want to work with official licensed material, being it like names or club logos or images of the players, and you earning money with it, so you're not doing like press or whatever, and it's releasing news. You want to earn money with it in terms of a game, then you have to have a license. So the entry barrier is quite high for fantasy. Um, Naturally, right? Because you have to get this license and then you have to start off, from scratch, so to say. So it was tough for us, and this is why we raised a seed round to get support, to pay the license, and for the first couple of years to be able to focus on the product, not worrying about the license, not worrying about the income too much. Um, so yeah, I would say it's a high entry barrier, but once you're in it and once you get your business running, it's manageable, right? So even for us now, like thinking about scaling, and we do think about scaling, of course, to other leagues, and we are in conversation with other leagues. Yeah, I mean, you have to come up with a deal somehow with them. Some leagues are super organized. They can say, okay, pay us this fixed amount, and you can get every club and every image, and you can just like use it. And some leagues are not that well organized. They're like, well, go to the clubs, and then you have to like go to each club, so to say, which is annoying, of course. But yeah, like looking back last 8 years, I think clubs or especially like the leagues and the organizations leading the leagues are getting more and more professional. So I think with the MLS, there's like really like an email, uh, and you're not even writing to the MLS. I think you're writing to an agency who's managing the licenses of the MLS. So super well organized. You just write them an email, you get a form, you fill it out. You haven't been talking to anyone, still already filled out like a long form of what do you want, kind of like from us. And yeah, so yeah, it's making life harder for us, but it's manageable. And certainly every league has this interest of getting the word out there, and Kickbase as a fantasy manager is getting the word out, with like in regards of talking about clubs, not only FC Bayern, talking about other clubs as well. So yeah, I wouldn't say we're doing them a favor, but actually we do. People watch more football with Kickbase. People watch more sports with fantasy, if generally spoken. So yeah, I think the every league is benefiting from fantasy. I think, and every league should support fantasy as much as they can, because this makes the game way more exciting.
Definitely. And it's kind of like what you said. I think a general fan of the Bundesliga who maybe lives abroad might tune in to see, you know, a few weeks ago we had Bayer Leverkusen against Bayern. They were both like top of the table at the time. But as soon as that general user has their own Kickbase team, they might watch Union Berlin against Augsburg to see how their players are doing.
You watch crazy games for sure. You watch less important games a lot more. Yeah, like my best example is literally like super unimportant Sunday game when it's raining out there. I enjoy it so much these days. Back in the days, I wouldn't even turn on the TV. I would just like play PlayStation or whatever. And these days, it's like it's raining outside. It's cold maybe outside. It's an unimportant Sunday game where probably mid-league something rivals are playing a boring game mostly. You're enjoying it so much because you have one or two players maybe from this club, and then you're like shouting and screaming if they're performing well. It's nice.
Yeah, and actually, I think that as an example serves so well the live thing, because you know, you spoke about that a bit when we were talking before about like second screening, you know, watching on your TV or your laptop, and you've got your phone with Kickbase open in your hand. So, you know, like, is it, how does it work? So what, say, let's use a fictional, let's use not a fictional, but let's use a player, let's use a player as an example. So maybe if we take Joshua Kimmich, and you know, we watch him play and he's, I don't know, dribbling on the right, he's about to pass down the line, and let's say like Serge Gnabry receives the pass there, and you're like, yes, you know, he completed a pass. Like, what would that mean for the player in your Kickbase team?
So for the manager, I mean, right?
Yeah.
Not the okay. Yeah, for the manager, it's actually like we have around 100 different actions we look at, right? So this pass you described is just like one possible thing that user Kimmich can do. And there are around 90 different other things that he could have done, you know, just like drawing a foul, for example, which would be stupid, or I don't know, kick the ball into, I don't know, or passing and Gnabry is in offside position or whatever. So around 90 to 100 different actions, possible actions, are being monitored. Actually, there are even more, I think around 200, 300, but we just like focus on 100, which we think is enough to observe the performance of a professional player like Joshua Kimmich, right? So in this scenario, when he passes the ball to Serge Gnabry, one thing we look at is, where did this pass started? Is it in his own half or in the opponent's half? How long was this pass? Was it like, you know, from right to left and only just like 5 meters, or is it like entering the opponent's third? You know, the pitch is divided into three thirds, you say, right? And the first third is like no points at all. The second third is okay, it's entering the opponent's half, so to speak. And the opponent's third is where passes are the most valuable, right? Because you're attacking the opponent. And those two things, and the third thing is like the pass from Kimmich is Gnabry receiving it and still get ball possession, or did he loses the ball, right? And those three things together forms a data point for us, so to say. We say like, okay, Joshua Kimmich just did a pass. It was long enough to be counted, and it was a successful pass. Nice, Joshua Kimmich +1 point. And that's probably the most easiest thing to do, right? I mean, there are more like, obviously the most important thing to do on the pitch is score a goal, right? So if Kimmich scores a goal instead of passing to Gnabry, he gets, depending on the position he plays, if he plays in the midfield, he just gets 80 points. If he plays in defense, he gets 90 points. And if he plays as a striker, he gets 80 points. No, it was 80 points for striker, 90 for midfield, and 100 for defense. And yeah, those things we look at, like really we're getting like an instant feed of data, what's happening on the pitch, and we are in real time processing and trying to say like, okay, this was a valuable thing from Joshua Kimmich or not. And then once it was valuable, we look at the community and say like, okay, how many of you guys have Joshua Kimmich? And then we spend the points, you know, and give everyone like +1 or +5 or +10, whatever he does. and this happens in real time in a couple of seconds. That's what's happening. Under the hood, so to say.
No, it's actually really cool, because I remember I had Patrick Schick. I just had to sell him because he's injured now, the Leverkusen striker, and he's had this insane run where he's like scored in almost every game. Even when Leverkusen lost against Bayern, he scored. And
so you're selling him. That's a tough call, I think. Like it's almost let's not say mid-season, but selling him.
No, I sold him to Kickbase, I have to say. Like, I didn't sell him to another user.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that. But still, it means like that. I don't know how big your league is, but it's like selling Schick means you still have to have like some players on the market that you can like trade him, right? Or like buy another, let's say not top scorer, but let's say like a mid to high level profile player, right? Because in our league, if I like for me, DIB from Leverkusen, like 5th yellow card, he's out for the next game. No way I sell him, because there's no other option. And I know once I sell him to Kickbase, the next opportunity where people can buy him, they will buy him off of me, and I don't get him back,
Definitely. Yeah, no, I hear you. I got Emil Forsberg, kind of like with Schick. I just like, this is how obsessed you get. Like, I Googled his injury.
That's what you do, actually.
How long is he gonna be out? Like,
what injury does he have, by the way? Like, what was it?
He has a torn
ligament.
Exactly.
Oh.
Torn. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he's
whatever torn, get rid of him. He will be out for many weeks.
Yeah, I think it was something like 1 to 3 months, and I was like,
yeah. 1 to 3 months. I mean, that will drop his market value by 10 million, 15 million, probably. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I can snatch him back up. Also, I should mention, like, when players come up on Kickbase, when Kickbase is like, this player is new in the transfer market, you'll have the value, but then it's a blind bidding war within your league. So our league, we have maybe 15 users.
Oh, wow, that's a tough fit.
And you'll, like, say with Emil Forsberg, when he came up, I think he was on sale for like 24 million or something. And then you can offer 24 million and hope that no one else bids, because then you get him for like quote unquote cheap. But what if someone is really desperate to have him and offers 27 million? Then you get a notification the next day, like, sorry, Kickbase rejected your offer.
It's like eBay, right? You didn't get him. Yeah.
It's exactly like eBay. Yeah. But Anatol, like, what is, you mentioned some other leagues, you mentioned MLS. Is that kind of the next big step, you think, to offer fans in other countries who maybe follow other leagues the chance to get in on Kickbase? Is that your guys' goal?
I wouldn't say it's our goal, right? I mean, it's a logical thing to do, because we seeing the success in the German market with the German league. We are like, well, we believe that our product might be also loved by other fans in other leagues, But then I'm also always like kind of like realistic about it, in terms of, I think other leagues have other dynamics, have other fans, have other products that they're already like aware of. Like, for example, the UK. Like, going to the UK with Kickbase, I would think it's like pretty competitive there, because the Premier League Fantasy Manager is kind of like the Premier League has their own product. How big is that? The Bundesliga has also their own product, but it's not so hyped. Not many people are playing it. I suppose, at least from what I hear, is like not many people talk about the Bundesliga Manager, the official one. And in the Premier League, there's nothing else kind of like it's the Premier League Fantasy Manager is the biggest thing there, and going there and competing with them is kind of like a hard thing to do, I believe. So it's not that we rely our future on other leagues. We say like, okay, we have to do this. That's the only thing we can think of, What we rather think of us is Kickbase, seeing us more as a brand. So understanding ourselves to be more than a game, to be maybe like a community of football addicts that can communicate and, hang out with. And we're rather thinking about, okay, maybe, like, I give you one example, like it's not mass market, but it's still like something we think about. What about this whole NFT crypto thingy, right? It's a niche thingy, but still, like if it comes down to, hey, you want to earn money as a company, you can rather think of crypto than going to another league. You probably can make more of crypto than going to another league. So from a business perspective, we're not thinking about other countries in terms of like scaling our revenue or whatever. It can be, but it's not the only thing we think about. We definitely think about technology like crypto, trying to think of like, can we kind of like use it? We're thinking even about like, I don't know, like I give you another extreme example is how about football tournaments, like real life football tournaments? How can Kickbase, support this area maybe, and how can Kickbase be experienced maybe in real life as well? What if we open a bar in the future where you can experience football, like watching football in a bar that is not, like smoky with beer and stinky and those little shady bars, but it's like maybe it's not posh. I don't want to be posh, but maybe it's a cool bar, just like cool bar with young people where you go to and where you're like feeling comfortable hanging out with, not filled with, random people. It's just like, okay, everyone who's here is a football guy, and maybe everyone who's here is even like a Kickbase guy. Everyone got his ID, maybe, whatever. We're thinking about different opportunities, how to scale the experience and how to scale the brand. But coming back to other leagues, we will do it 100%. We will do it, but it's not the thing that we rely on in terms of like, okay, that we have to do it because otherwise, there's no other way to scale or other way to get bigger or better.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that different countries already might have saturated markets, like competitors. Do different countries also have different type of fans, and how do you research that? Because for example, like here in the US, it's like I feel like fantasy sports is huge compared to Germany. Everyone
it is.
Yesterday I went to the Brooklyn Nets, and
nice.
It was really fun. Unfortunately, they lost against the Miami Heat, but there were some Nets fans next to me, and every time that Tucker, who was on the Heat, would score like a free throw, they would be like, "Oh, I hate that guy, but he's on my fantasy team, so at least I'm getting points." And
like I consider the US to be the birthplace kind of like of fantasy, right? I mean, with all those huge sports they have, I mean, US is amazing in this regards. You have NFL, NBA, NHL. It's huge there, and therefore, and plus considering that betting in the US was for a very long time and still is, I suppose, like it's not like an easy thing to do unless you are in Nevada or like around Las Vegas, right? So like I have the strong belief that this is why fantasy got this ramp and boosted up and now is so popular in the US. Like looking at the Europe market, everyone is doing betting here, and like everyone is doing betting here because that's what you do. This is how you make the game more exciting. You don't have to bet 100 euros, just bet like 2, 3, 4, 5 euros on the weekend, and you might win 500 or you might lose the 5 euros, but still you had like a fun experience, during the weekend for just 5 euros sitting on the couch and have an exciting time. And this is why the European market is I think lagging behind a bit in terms of fantasy, because you just like did betting for a very long time. And now with FanDuel, DraftKings coming also to the European market, people more and more like realize, cool, you can also play fantasy and earn money with that. So yeah, it's a fun thing to watch, And still, I believe that that DraftKings will have a harder time, or does have a hard time adapting to the European market. Not like if I would be DraftKings sitting in the US and hearing like what in Europe, like the continent of like football where so many football fans are, if I throw DraftKings at them, they will just like eat it away straight up, and use it and love it and so on. And like from my perception, it didn't happen. They tried, or they entered the European market, and people were still like asking Germany, like one of the most competitive and best leagues in Europe, like still up to this day, I don't know any person playing DraftKings. You could already like just do it. And the same idea I have about me going to the US. I don't think just because I'm Kickbase that people, oh, thank God Kickbase is here. It's the best thing I've ever experienced. I think many people will say like, okay, but DraftKings is way cooler. FanDuel is way cooler. I can win money there. I can't win money with Kickbase. You know, it's not that easy. You can just like go to a different league or country and just like hope for the best, and at least not hope for the same dynamics you experience in your own country. And this is why we think very careful about how to go to the different market. Maybe scan it, research it. You mentioned it. We do high research on different countries where we want to go, you know, or we're still assessing. Maybe we go to Spain first and then to US, or maybe we can go to Turkey first and then Spain. And this also means you have to check the media. How's the landscape there? Do they have similar products? How's it working there? If they have fantasy, and like what are the rules there? Maybe the German rules, so to say, will like scare them off because they just don't understand this whole market value and transfer market thingy. Maybe they just want to draft a player and then be happy for the rest of the season. You know, all those things are hard to scale, to be honest. And this is like a new thing to me as well, because as you mentioned, digital product, just scale it somewhere else. You know, it sounds so easy, like a to-do app. A to-do app will work the same way in the US, the same way it works in Germany. It's like put a list on, tick things off, to-do app, done. And with fantasy, it's not that easy. People have, you know, different cultural background, different media and football landscape. I think MLS they're having playoffs, right? In the MLS.
Yeah.
Right. Like our product doesn't know playoffs, you know. So this alone is like an insane thing for us. It's like, okay, if we go to the S, we have to adapt our product so you can play Kickbase also during the playoffs. Sounds super fun, but it's also like it's a lot of work for us, you know. And this is what we're, you know, analyzing all the time and trying to think of like the best opportunity.
Definitely. No, that's really cool, actually. And you just had really great news last week or 2 weeks ago when you guys closed the deal with EA Sports, the makers of FIFA. There's actually a new FIFA game, I think FIFA 22, coming out right about now.
Launched.
Can you talk a little bit about that, and
sure.
like how that came about and what your plans are?
Yeah, well, this cooperation with or collaboration with EA Sports means a lot to us. Why? I mean, for the first, it's like a super strong brand, and we like to hang out with strong brands, so to say, right? So we have a Twitch channel where we stream while we're, you know, playing FIFA, and our fans love it. They watch us play FIFA, you know, they play with us, they play against us, you know. We do like a weekly show around this, and the main product is of course FIFA 22. And so we approached EA and told them, right, like, see, like I mean, we're not the only ones streaming FIFA apparently, but we have this huge community of football fans from Germany, and they're watching those streams and they're interacting with us. And we want to give away maybe one or two like bundles, maybe FIFA as a game, or maybe, you know, FIFA Ultimate Team cards or whatever. And so this is how the whole conversation started, and it ended up to be way bigger, to be honest, because what we presented them is actually that FIFA can have an own challenge within Kickbase, right? So what does that mean is that FIFA, this game publisher, publishes its own little game within the Kickbase universe, which is fun, right? So once you open Kickbase, you can say like, okay, FIFA is offering me something here. What's going on there? Then you click on FIFA, and then you see, okay, actually I can play Kickbase with the Kickbase rules, and FIFA is sponsoring me some prizes. Maybe it's some signed jersey or some FIFA games again. We were also thinking about, you know, putting a PlayStation 5 there, but it's so hard to get, so we we ended up not putting it there. So what EA and FIFA therefore is offering our fans through our own platform Kickbase is like a, let's say, like a branded experience, and you can play for a tournament, you compete against other FIFA fans, and if you win, you get certain prizes, and it's all under this FIFA 22 challenge. And it was to celebrate the launch of FIFA 22, and yeah, we were really lucky that they used us as well as many other partners, probably, and many other media channels. They used us to launch FIFA 22 within a very football addicted fan group, so to say. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I've almost taken up all your time.
No, don't worry.
But
All good.
I just I just wanted to ask you, so to people, like, just as a kind of summary, to people who maybe haven't heard of Kickbase or
Yeah.
don't have the app yet. We have viewers from Germany, the UK, the US, and we have some from Indonesia. We have people
Wow.
everywhere. What should they take away from this? Like, if they want to like open a tab and check you guys out, or maybe they want to actually find out more about fantasy sports in general.
Yeah.
What kind of do you want to leave them with?
Well, I think that products like Kickbase, and especially, of course, Kickbase, because this is the reason we set out to do Kickbase, is to open your eyes on the sports, on this game, or especially like on a certain league. Like Kickbase, we only work with the Bundesliga right now. So what Kickbase helps you with is really, if you are not just a Bayern fan, or if you are a Bayern fan and you just want to engage more with the league, Kickbase is a really, really fun and easy way to enter this whole Bundesliga thingy, right? Like, and then super easy way, you get to know many new players. You just can't buy just Bayern players, because once they lose, and they can lose, as we figured some days ago, you get to know way more players, and that's the fun thing about it, right? Because as you mentioned before, you start watching different games, and you start figuring out that they're actually also good games. I mean, they're just not playing on the top of the league, but they're still like super good clubs in the Bundesliga who have like super great players who are who can play really, really good, and have like great coaches, and you're kind of like sucked into this whole experience of Bundesliga, and not just focused on one club and one game per week. And this is, I think, the exciting thing that Kickbase helps you with. It's in a really organic and playful way. I wouldn't say teaches you, but at least, like, and in the long run, it does teach you a lot, probably. But it sucks you in this Bundesliga world, and lets you enjoy this whole tournament way more than without it. And this is actually what we want to achieve with other leagues as well. So definitely thinking about La Liga, Serie A, and Premier League, of course, and many other leagues, just to make them more open to other football fans who are maybe not so hardcore about just one club. Because this is actually what we see. People are more and more fans of individuals, of certain players, and this is a fun way to start, this whole thingy, and just like engage with one or two certain players that you really love, and build your team around them, and then just like figure out what else there is to see in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, and you definitely end up kind of taking a lot of pride in your players and building up some kind of emotional connection. Like, especially when you pick up a player for cheap, and then they like, the value rises what they score, and you're like, my boy. Like,
I started following random players on Instagram just because they're on my team and they're scoring for me. They were like, I don't know, like super low profile players, even like just a couple of thousands followers on Instagram, and I'm like, you're my man, just like go ahead and score some goals.
And any of those, can you name any of those players on your team?
Yeah, like not a player anymore, at least for Dortmund, was Gonzalo Castro. He was like, for many years, he was like not a good example in terms of low profile, but he was someone I like, some player, I don't know about him, right? But once I got him and he scored some goals for me and did like a good performance within Borussia Dortmund, then he moved to Stuttgart. I was like a huge fan of him, and then started following him. Then I figured out, well, he's actually a nice person as well, like in his Instagram, he always seems to be super nice, and I was like, okay, he's a cool guy. Without Kickbase, I would never like engage with this player, right? Why should I, who else is in my team? Like Mavropanos is not in my team, unfortunately, but I really like this guy as well. Diaby, or like now like Adli, also Leverkusen, joined. I got him as well. Don't know much about him, but I already figuring out like, okay, I'm starting to follow him. I starting to read news about him, start to understand where he come from, like what are his opportunities within the club, Bayern Leverkusen. So yeah, that's a fun thing Kickbase teaches you, sort of.
Definitely. We're getting really nice feedback here. Thank you. Yeah, no, for me, it was like Kevin Schade, who plays for Freiburg. He's an
Yeah.
Freiburg Academy graduate. And I signed him for like 500,000 early in the season just because I needed another player. And then he started getting minutes, and now he's at like 5 million. And he scored in the for the under 21 German team. So it had nothing to do with Kickbase. And I was like, go Kevin! Like,
yeah, it's crazy, right? I mean, you start scout people like from, and even in different tournaments, you just like follow them, try to see like, okay, how do they perform outside of the Bundesliga? Yeah, I was just checking him. Yeah, I know this guy. Yeah. Yeah.
No, so he's kind of like one of my you're putting him on the scout list.
Yeah, just
here we have an Arsenal player. Yeah, if you're interested in Mavropanos, Ganby Johns, I am actually writing an article on him right now for Forbes. I spoke with his agent.
Nice.
And I got some answers from Mavropanos as well, just because kind of like an interesting story what happened there, because Stuttgart has an obligation to buy him for a really low sum if they stay in the Bundesliga, and it's kind of bad business for Arsenal because he's had a breakout season, and they're gonna buy him, I think, for like 4 million euros, which is, he's a 23-year-old center back who's very good. His value is probably more like 20.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm afraid we have to sacrifice the StreamYard because some of the guys from the transfer exchange are actually also going to use this.
Perfect. No, thanks a lot for having me, Marie. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. And here we have this guy also wants my attention now.
Teddy bear. Yeah, he wants to go out.
Yeah, he wants to go out, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, see. Okay, Gatsby.
Enough of that.
See you guys next time. I'm gonna end the broadcast, and try out Kickbase if you let me.
Thank you so much. Bye, Marie. Thanks.